Good morning, everyone. Myself P. Venkateswar Reddy, and I'm from Triple E branch, studying 8th semester in Aeronautical Engineering College. And we are discussing about the disaster management subject. And our topic is the controversy around climate change reports, a case study of Twitter responses to the 2019 IPCC report online. In August 2019, the Intergovernmental Panel of Climate Change published its special report on climate change and land, which generated extensive societal debates and interest in mainstream and social media. Using computational and conceptual test analysis, we examined more than 6,000 English language posts on Twitter to establish the relative presence of different topics. Then we assessed their levels of toxicity and sentiment polarity as an indication of contention and controversy. We first find that meat consumption and dietary options became one of the most discussed issues on Twitter in response to the IPCC reports, even though it was a relatively minor element of the reports. Second, this news issue of controversy at similar high levels of toxicity to strongly continuous issues in previous IPCC reports, which is skepticism about climate science and the credibility of the IPCC. Here we can see the block like the graphical representation of these percentage of the enriched, and we have the different topics based on the regions as USA and UK in blue and USA in orange highlighted. Here the options validity, whenever is accessory, redemption is fossil fuels, carbon dioxide monoxide, demand simple, transport, land use, land solutions, buildings, finance, cities, industries. In all these topics were highlighted, and in contrast, annual seed like investment costs are more dependent on the magnitude of sea level rise. In terms of total costs with adaptation, upper middle, lower middle, and low income groups are projected to have higher relative costs as a proportion of GDP compared with high income groups. If low income countries protected now, flood costs could be reduced after 2050 and beyond. However, without further adaptation, their costs will experience growing risk in costs, leaving them increasingly reliant on emergency response measures. Without mitigation or adaptation, greater inequalities in damage costs between income groups could result. At country level, annual sea flood damage costs without additional adaptation are projected to rapidly increase with approximately 0.2 meters of sea level rise, leaving limited time to plan and adapt. And here is a graphical representation of the temperature change relatively from 1850 to 1900 degrees Celsius, and based on the year from 1860 to 2020 with intervals of 20 years, we can see the land temperature and the global impedance temperature. The Intergovernmental Panel of Climate Change is special report on global warming of 1.5 degrees Celsius. The cause of coastal flooding and protection were not assessed as data were unavailable. Since then, Javeja et al. Analyzed this at 1.5 and 2 degrees Celsius, but did not assess costs associated with higher levels of warming. There is increasing evidence that limiting warming to 1.5 degree will be challenging to achieve. So the sea levels will rise even with stringent climate change mitigation. Mitigation will slow the rate of rise. There is limited knowledge on how the cost of coastal protection vary with alternative global warming levels of 1.5 degrees Celsius to 4 degrees Celsius. The Paris Agreement sets a roadmap to limit warming to well below 2 degrees Celsius and to pursue efforts to limit the temperature increase to 1.5 degrees Celsius. or pre-industrial levels known as like United Nations in 2015. However, it does not mention a sea level rise, which even with stringent climate change mitigation, temperature stabilization will keep rise over periods of greater than 50 years. Mitigation can have a notable effect on rates and magnitude of the SLR, like Oppenheimer, Goodwin, Jevreja, Nicholas et al., Rasmussen, Nicholas and Lowe. Additionally, as there are large uncertainties around future ice melt. Analyzing six sea level risk scenarios. Across these warming levels, the five shared socio-economic pathways. This paper quantitates the economic cost of flooding and protection due to the sea level rise using the dynamic interactive vulnerability assessment modeling framework. Results are presented for World Bank working groups of five selected countries from the present to 2100. Annual sea flood damages caused without additional adaptation are more influenced by socio-economic developments than sea level rise, indicating that there are opportunities to control risks with development choices. In contrast, annual sea dike investment costs are more dependent on the magnitude of sea level rise. In terms of total cost with adaptation, permitted lower, middle, and low income groups are projected to have higher relative costs as a proportion of GDP compared with high income groups. Damages and economic losses could be reduced if local decision makers understand the potential impacts of sea level rise and use the information for planning. The authors and the Pew Center gratefully acknowledge Dr. Donald Boyce and Dr. George Parsons for the review on previous drafts of these reports. In addition, the Pew Center would like to thank Joel Smith and Brian Hurt, who started consulting for the management and oversight of this environmental impact series. If low income countries protected now, flood costs could be reduced after 2050 and beyond. However, without further adaptation, the costs will experience growing risk and costs will leave them increasingly reliant on emergency response measures. Without mitigation adaptation, greater inequalities in damage costs between income groups could result. At country level, annual sea flood damage costs without additional adaptation are projected to rapidly increase with approximately zero point 0.2 meters of sea level rise, leaving limited time to plan and adapt. The major physical impacts of a sea rise level include erosion of beaches, inundation of deltas, as well as flooding and loss of many marshes and wetlands. Increased saliently will likely become a problem in coastal aquifers and estuarial systems as a result of saltwater intrusion. Climate change is likely to accelerate the historical rise in sea level through warming of oceans and melting of ice, which in turn will affect coastal development, wetland resources, and recreation along with the US coast. Sea level rise and global climate change is the fourth in a series of reports examining the potential impacts of climate change of the US environment and society. These reports find the vulnerability of a coastal area to sea level rise varies according to the physical characteristics of the coastline, the population size and the amount of development, and the responsiveness of the land use and infrastructure planning at the local level. The authors are concluding the following: low-lying developed areas in the Gulf Coast, the South and the Mid-Atlantic regions are especially at risk from the sea level rise. The rapid growth of the coastal areas in the last few decades has resulted in great populations and more valuable coastal property being at risk from the sea level rises. The impacts of sea level rise will occur in coastal areas that are continuously evolving and already face a wide range of natural and human included stresses, including erosion, storms, land subsidences, wetland loss, and environmental degradation from leakage and development pressures. This growth, which is expected to continue, brings with a greater likelihood to increase the property damages in the coastal areas. The major physical impacts of a rising sea level include erosion of beaches, inundation of deltas, as well as the flooding and loss of many marshes and wetlands. Damage to and loss of coastal areas would jeopardize the economic and global ecological amenities provided coastal wetlands and marshes, including flood control, critical ecology habitat, water purification. The following conclusions were drawn under scenarios of 1.5 to 2 degrees Celsius. 0.44 meters and 0.8 meters of global mean SLI projected respectively in 2100 year, and fire high rises of 3.5 to 4 degrees Celsius. A further 1 meter to 1.09 meters are projected respectively. Thank you.